Welcome to the Living Aware Parenting podcast. My name's Marion Rose, PhD, and I am so glad to be sharing about aware parenting with you. Aware parenting was created by Aletha Salter, PhD. You can find her work at the Aware Parenting Institute website at www.awareparenting.com. I'm a Level 2 Aware Parenting Instructor and the Regional Coordinator for Australia, New Zealand and Indonesia. I've been an aware parenting instructor since 2005, and I've been practicing aware parenting since my daughter, the first of my two children, was a baby in 2002. In the Living Aware Parenting podcast, I share about Aletha Salter's work in the most distilled and concise way that I can to support parents to understand the philosophy of this groundbreaking approach, the practices and ways to live and embody this life-changing work. I've been fascinated by this work for more than 2 decades, and my understanding of it becomes more and more nuanced over time. I am so willing for this podcast to bring you even more clarity, compassion, and deep care in your own unique journey. Thank you for coming on this voyage of discovery with me. Hello again, lovely you. Well, this is at least the third time that I'm recording this. The first time I recorded it, it was an hour and a half long, and I loved it. I felt really happy. I was sharing a lot of my stories. I was delighted with it. And then later on I found that I'd moved my laptop a little bit, and the microphone somehow, it was so distorted. So I had a go at editing. I used all kinds of different software. I looked up lots of things. I didn't find that helped. So at the end of this whole series, I started recording it again, and then it was evening, so there were the cicadas all out making a big noise. So after about 25 minutes of that, I stopped. And I had another go last night and this morning, editing out the high-pitched squealing noise that was in the first recording. Anyway, I did not find a way to do that. So I am back again, and I am not giving up. And I'm really willing for this one to work, and for you to be able to hear it clearly, and for me to be really happy with it, and I'm so willing for it to be even more enjoyable than the first version. So, in the last episode, I talked about my background with aware parenting and why I had such an aha moment when I first found it. And in this episode, I'm talking about my own experiences and my journey with aware parenting, both in my experience as a parent, but also as an aware parenting instructor, a mentor, a teacher, including a teacher of both people who are becoming aware parenting instructors and aware parenting instructors, and in my own healing journey, so my own experience of how aware parenting has affected my own relationship with my feelings and my needs and so many other things. So here's chapter 1. Chapter 1 I've called She Doesn't Have Any Feelings to Release. And so this is about my journey from pregnancy with Lana 24 years ago through to when she was 3 months old. So I had a very empowering birth experience. I'm sending love to you if you feel painful feelings when you hear that. That's a whole long journey and story with that, which I will share on my other podcast, the Marion Rose podcast. And both because of all I understood about aware parenting and my background in attachment theory, and because of my own experience of not being held as a baby, I held Lana all the time. Either me or her dad were holding her all the time. And I fed her a lot. A lot. It's a little birdie here. Hello, little birdie. I didn't make notes. Did I make notes of it? Once I started practicing aware parenting, I had a little journal where I wrote down everything. I'm not sure if I did for those first 3 months. From my memory, I was feeding her a lot of the evenings, and I loved it. In many ways, it was very healing for me, as I say, because I didn't experience being breastfed, being held. For my own healing journey, it was very healing. And we also did quite a bit of bouncing on the ball, Michael and I. So we had one of those big fit balls back in the day, and we would hold her and we would bounce, and we had a little song that we would sing. Now, as you know, if you'd listened to the last episode, I had already read Aletha Salter's The Aware Baby. I had already read Tears and Tantrums. I deeply resonated with aware parenting. I knew that's what we were going to be practicing. And from the information I'd read and how I'd interpreted it, and because of my own history and the depth of pain I'd experienced as a baby, even though I'd done 10 years of therapy, I told myself that we were meeting all of her needs and that she didn't have any painful experiences, painful feelings to express. And that was even including very, very long posterior birth, because I was so relaxed. I was so relaxed and calm and had a very empowering experience. I just told myself, oh, well, she wasn't stressed. She wouldn't have any feelings about that either. Now, you think with a background in pre and perinatal psychology, I might assume that even if her heartbeat wasn't raised and she wasn't stressed from all those markers, that moving through the birth canal for 86 hours and coming out with a very domed head at one angle, that she would have experienced significant physical and emotional pain. But no, because of my own experiences and how happy she seemed to be, I just told myself she didn't have any painful feelings to express. So if any of you have gone through that experience and had those thoughts, I completely understand. When I was feeding her every evening for many hours, because I enjoyed it, because I was telling myself, she seemed really happy and calm and relaxed. And we were bouncing the ball and she seemed to be really happy and calm and relaxed. I did not realise that many times we were helping her dissociate. I thought that we were simply meeting all of her needs. And I do think this is one of the many massive contributions that aware parenting makes that I do not see any other paradigm making, which is understanding and being able to clearly observe, which I wasn't able to do back then, the difference between when we are doing something. But my nails are all dirty from scratching the doggies this morning. And there we go. Interesting. I wonder why that came up at that time. The difference between... So I'll go back. I think one of the major, massive contributions that aware parenting makes that I do not see any other paradigm making is really, really understanding. And actually there are some that are amazing, by the way. But anyway, being able to differentiate between when we are doing something that is meeting a baby's need, or a child's need for that matter, or our own needs, and as a result they're feeling deeply relaxed in their bodies because those needs are met. And when a baby or a child has painful feelings to express, and they're trying to express those feelings, and we interpret that as a need, and we do things which we then think are meeting that need, but are actually helping them dissociate. So being able to really clearly tell the difference basically between true relaxation and dissociation is something that transforms our lives, I believe, as parents, and for the little ones that we are seeing clearly. So I do want to add, if you'd listened to that last episode, I was highly trained in infant observation for 2 long chunks of time. During my PhD, I'd been for more than a year. For the first patch of time, I was visiting mothers and babies and observing them and videoing them. And then for a very long chunk of time, I was watching those videos millisecond by millisecond and coding them. It was a very long time looking at mothers and babies. And in that second chunk of time when I was a postdoctoral research fellow, I was also engaged for many hours observing babies. But because I didn't have this map, I didn't know what to look for. And that's why I see this aware parenting information as so important. We don't have a map, we don't know what to look for. We will see a baby that is starting to be antsy, then stop being antsy. We will often see that as if they're not crying, they're happy. We will not see the fact that the expression in their eyes, the state of their muscles, whether they're willing to make eye contact, what they're doing in terms of if they're sucking their thumb or any of those things. They're not taught in this culture to see when they're actually dissociating. Not calm and relaxed, dissociating. Again, so much love and compassion to you if you're feeling any painful feelings hearing this. As I say, not only for those first 3 months, I was doing that, we were doing that a lot. And from many months after that, I was still doing that a lot. It took me quite a long time to really understand this and to see this clearly. And two things. Number one, I really wish I'd had more sessions with Aletha right from early on, because that would have foundationally affected those early years, that early year, that first 3 months, that first year, in ways that would have been really made a difference. Even though I still really enjoyed it, Lana was still getting most of her needs met, apart from complete attunement and listening, having all her feelings heard. So I have no judgment of myself, because if you know me, I'm not willing to judge anyone in their parenting, and I'm deeply compassionate with myself. And this is why I love to share this information, and particularly here, but also in my books. So particularly in The Emotional Life of Babies, I talk a lot about this, because I would have loved to have basically talked to Aletha back at that time and to have heard from her, this is how you can tell that your baby has an unmet need, like for nourishment, and you feed her and she's completely relaxed. And this is how you can tell when she has feelings to share with you and you're doing things to her, feeding her, rocking her, bouncing, jiggling, and she's dissociating. I may not have, how much of that information I would have been able to move into actually listening to the feelings, who knows, but I would have loved to have understood it more quickly, because it would have made a difference in my relationship with Lana. So that's why I love sharing this with you. So, chapter 2, a breastfeeding control pattern and the first crying in arms. So, by the time Lana was 3 months old, again, still yummy. I would have breastfed. I often joked in early years, if I would have kept breastfeeding until she was, until she was 18, whatever, I would have carried on. I loved it. She appeared to love it. I would have carried on. But I started to realise that actually I wasn't reading her cues accurately. And actually that she did have painful feelings to express. And actually I had been, and we had been, suppressing those feelings. And if I had taken her for a diagnosis for something, I'm sure she would have been given a diagnosis, because back in that time I had about 50 bibs, because she was constantly, say, bringing up milk. Again, there could be all kinds of diagnoses for that. But basically, and again, I'm sending love to you if you have feelings, painful feelings when you hear this, or if you completely disagree, because in some paradigms this would be it's a very different perception. But I was feeding her so much, and she was bringing up quite a lot of that milk. Again, I loved breastfeeding her. If I'd continued to believe, as I had done for those first 3 months, it was the most helpful thing for her, I would have carried on for as long as I was believing that to be true. However, I started to see other small signs as well. She was still appeared to be completely relaxed and calm, but maybe just a little bit less present, maybe just a little bit less eye contact, maybe just a little bit more tension in her body. I thought. So Michael and I, we had conversations and he was seeing the same. And if you've heard any podcasts together where we talk about this experience, we were having a conversation. So Michael's her dad. Even he's an aware parenting instructor too. Even just a few months ago, the last time we talked about it, he had tears in his eyes as he shared about the first time we listened to her feelings in our loving arms. It was a profound and life-changing experience for both of us to be present with her in that way and to see what happened, to be with the deepest feelings in her, and to change a whole paradigm basically of human beings, of babies, of children, which I talk about in a later episode, which I've already recorded. So that first time we sat in what was then the office, so same house, in the office, which is many years later became her bedroom. We had these IKEA chairs with the high backs, and I'd made these beautiful covers with this beautiful gold fabric. We sat next to each other, Michael and I, and we took turns holding her in my favourite position, which again you would see if you've seen the diagram that Lana drew in the back of The Emotional Life of Babies, where we would hold her. Can't really see in the video, and if you listen to the audio, I invite you to have a look at that picture if you've got the book. Basically, so we were gazing in her eyes whenever she had her eyes open and was looking at us, and she could see and gaze in her eyes whenever she chose to. And she started to move into starting to express feelings. And we were there with her. And she started into crying more fully. And she cried louder and louder and more intensely, and her body moved around intensely. And Michael and I were both there with her, holding her, taking turns in holding her, listening, supporting each other. She cried louder and louder. And I think that first crying in arms, I think it was about 45 minutes. Again, I did write it down somewhere, and I always thought, I'll remember exactly these things, but I think it was either between 30 and 45 minutes, I think. And so that was really, now I know that was the tip of the iceberg, but she went deeply into her feelings. There was like the crescendo of crying, and then the feelings lessened and lessened, and there was another little crescendo, as is often the case, this kind of wave of expression. And then in her own time, so without us, we didn't jiggle or rock or feed or distract in any way, she came to the end of that first chunk of feelings. I wonder in retrospect which feelings she was expressing to us then. Was that the most recent feelings, or was she going back to her expressing anything from in utero? I don't know. I'm curious now as I say that to inquire. And as she moved into completing that whole chunk of expression, an quality of complete presence and stillness radiated out of her throughout the whole room. And Michael and I sat in that quality of presence. And we gazed in her eyes, and she gazed back, as if for all eternity. It was one of the most profound moments of our lives. Because both Michael and I had done many retreats, workshops, so many different paradigms. He'd been meditating since he was 17, practicing Tai Chi. I'd been to a bazillion different workshops, retreats. I'd been practicing Shivananda yoga every day for years. I'd been to a bazillion different places, heard from so many different teachers, gurus, so much talking about presence. And yet the quality of presence that the three of us sat in that day was unlike anything I'd known. And it had simply come from us being willing to be deeply present with her and to not distract her from her feelings, to make sure all her needs were met, absolutely. So I didn't mention that, but she'd already been feeding for hours that evening. We hadn't learnt about EC then, so she was wearing cloth nappies. We just changed the nappy. So all the things that we would normally do to make sure all her needs were met, she was right there, we were holding her. The thing that we did differently is we were present in ourselves. We knew the theory of aware parenting. We were willing to listen. And we simply didn't stop her from feeling her feelings and expressing them to us. And we listened through the whole chunk of feelings until she came out the other side. And the result, or the effect, I don't even really like the word result, was from being pretty calm after that, even just that one chunk of feelings, which again in retrospect she had 3 months of accumulated feelings to express, but still expressing those first feelings, painful feelings, meant she embodied this deep quality of presence, which as a 23-year-old woman now, she still exudes, as does Sunny, who's 19. Even though we've been through many trials and tribulations, which I will share about. Everything changed from that moment on. So this is this third aspect of aware parenting. Wow. There's a dove arriving. Yeah, peace, true peace. So, although I'd had that experience, later on that evening, I started having all these thoughts. I started doubting my lived experience, which was of that quality of presence, which was how different that was to how she was every night when I was feeding her all night long, where she seemed calm, but she wasn't present. She wasn't deeply relaxed. So I knew one person at that time, one person who was practicing aware parenting. And I phoned her up and I shared about my concerns, and she listened lovingly, which is why having our feelings heard by someone who understands this is so important. She listened and she listened. And after that, and the experience, Michael and I decided that we would listen to her feelings every evening before sleep. And that we did that together most of the time. So pretty much every night, not every night, but pretty much we listened to her feelings in that similar way. Night after night after night after night. And for the first days, weeks, it was a similar length of time, although sometimes it'd be quite a bit longer. Sometimes it was shorter. And we listened to pretty much every day every night for the first 3 years of her life. Now, in my thoughts, and from working with thousands of parents over 20 years, and I do want to say this is my take, this is not Aletha Salter, who is the founder of Aware Parenting's take. But I think that most babies have some feelings to express for about the first year, most days for about the first year. For some, that might be a very small amount, And for others, depending on how much stress and trauma they have experienced and are experiencing, for others that may be a lot. So, because of the first 3 months where she didn't have the opportunity to express any feelings, and because of the next chunk of time, which I'm going to share about with you, you're probably listening to about 50-60% of her feelings, even though at the time I thought, oh, okay, now we're listening to 100%, which I will talk about in a minute. I believe that second year and third year of listening every night was her expressing feelings that we'd still been suppressing. So the feelings that we'd suppressed in the first 3 months, and the feelings that we'd also suppressed in the second and third year. So I do want to offer that to you. As Aletha Salter always says, it's never too late. And of course, most of us know that to be true, because most of us started our healing journey of reconnecting with and welcoming the power of our feelings and feeling and expressing our feelings in healing ways when we're adults. So if we start listening when they're 3 months old, or 1, or 5, or 10, or 15, it's never too late. When they're an adult, it's never too late. So however old your child or children are, it's never too late to start listening to their painful feelings. So, we were listening every night, but there were many times in which I wasn't doing the thing I just was telling you about a bit earlier on about discerning. So, for example, I remember for quite some time when she woke up, I would just feed her. I didn't think, I didn't inquire, is this actually what she most truly needs? I still often fed her when she clearly had painful feelings to express. And when she was about 9 or 10 months, I realised that was affecting her sleep. So even though, again, it wasn't a bother, she wasn't waking up a million times or anything, but I realised that she could sleep longer from an aware parenting perspective. And you probably hear me, if you're familiar with my work, I don't really very often, or I aim as little as possible to talk about babies sleeping through the night or what age that can happen, because I'm more interested in supporting each family with their own unique journey. But I did know that with aware parenting, sleep can be a very different experience, and I have written a very big book on sleep more recently, which is for parents of naught-year-olds right through to early adulthood, by the way. So I really know through lived experience how it's a completely different experience we can have. The title of that book and my course is Sound Sleep and Secure Attachment with Aware Parenting. That's what I learned, again, through experience, but it took me a while. And around about 9 to 10 months, I, again, listened to more feelings, adjusted what I was doing in terms of her sleep and breastfeeding and listening to her feelings. And she then slept through the night, basically, which, again, I don't even really enjoy the term through the night. Anyway, but she slept for a long chunk. Now, I still thought we were probably listening to most of her feelings, but by 18 months, it was very clear that I had still been often feeding her when she had painful feelings to express, and that I had given her what's called a breastfeeding control pattern. In other words, she had learned to interpret that when she felt painful feelings, that she was hungry and would ask for boob, and that generalized to being held by me, and it became much harder for her then to express her painful feelings to me, which is exceedingly common. It's very common. I keep using the word exceedingly recently, but no, it's very common in the practice of aware parenting. And I would say almost every mother that I've worked with has experienced this, even if they're practicing aware parenting right from birth, as I thought I was doing, because we're always going to veer on the side of hunger, thinking our baby's hungry rather than they have painful feelings to share with us. And it's a massive journey, this discernment that I'm talking about. It's a big journey. So that would generally mean that over time, because so many times I communicated to Lana, I'm not going to listen to your feelings, I'm going to feed you, even though you're not hungry. And as a result, she became less and less free and comfortable and willing to express her painful feelings to me, which, when I realised that, I felt absolutely devastated. Because, again, if you've listened to the previous episode and heard my own history and the amount of trauma that I experience and the deep pain of being separated from my lovely mama, who's just over there, oh no, she's not asleep, she's awake now, sitting at her little desk. It was my dream that my daughter would feel free and comfortable to express all her painful feelings with me. That was my whole desire, it was my whole intention, one of the main ones, that she would be free to feel and express her feelings and heal from stress and trauma. So to realise that in me doing what I thought was the most loving thing, in me doing what I thought was meeting her needs, in me doing what was seen to be the most wonderful thing ever, had meant she was not free to share her painful feelings with me as she was with her dad, I was so devastated. And again, this is where the aware parenting lens is so different from what I call a classical attachment parenting lens. And in fact, Letha's taken that. She enjoyed that term, so that is now also an aware parenting term. Classical attachment parenting, meaning what is usually called attachment parenting, but in aware parenting we call it classical attachment parenting to differentiate it from aware parenting, which is also a form of attachment parenting. Number one aspect, the first aspect, is attachment style parenting, which I shared about in the first series. So from a classical attachment parenting perspective, this is where so many parents go down this different track, where it appears that the baby or the toddler or the young child is only willing to be with the mother, is only able to go to sleep with the mother, and so often, and I'm sending love to whatever your experience has been. And I have worked with many mothers who, as a result, have experienced overwhelm, burnout, resentment, all kinds of things. And this is one of the many things I absolutely adore about aware parenting, that it really is possible to have a completely different experience, where if there is another partner, so more commonly a dad, but of course if it's two mums, that the non-breastfeeding parent can support the baby to go to sleep right from day dot, can listen to feelings, and because we have much more understanding of when a baby's hungry and when they've got painful feelings to express, it means if the breastfeeding mama wants to go off to a yoga class or whatever, she can be confident of how the chunk of time until it's likely that the baby's going to become hungry again. So it's transformative for families, and that certainly was my experience with Sunny, who was born when Lana was 4.5. When I had all of these things, I understood them more clearly, but it was a complete learning journey with Lana. Hello, lovely darling. Beep, 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 beep. Where are you? Ah, there you are. That's the mama. There you go, the mama Pee-wee, which if you have done my recent course, which is a Marian Method course on becoming more whole in relationship, you'll see the whole journey with the Pee-wees in the trees, just here. Anyway, and not only was she finding it harder and harder to express her feelings with me, but that was also affecting her ability to feel relaxed enough to have a nap. So it was also affecting her naps. At night, sleeping was still easeful and restful, so as I talk about in many places, and there are going to be many episodes of this podcast. I've already mapped out, I think, about 180 different episodes. So I'm going to be talking about all these things in detail. I want to bring them in here in terms of my own experience, and I'll be talking about all of them in detail in future episodes. So her night sleeping was still easeful and restful, and what I want to say is different parts of a baby's or child's or toddler's experience are affected differently by accumulated feelings. So the accumulated feelings and my relationship with her and her feelings was affecting her naps, but not her nighttime sleep. So that's also something to take into account. So I was with her most of the time. I did, when she was about 2.5, I started to have a sense of, I want to do some things on my own. So Michael started looking after her, started being with her for half a day or so, and I'd go for ice skating every week, which I loved. And there were so many things that Michael found much easier with in terms of practicing aware parenting. So she had a traumatic heel prick test, which I am very sad about, and had made different choices with Sunny. And that meant every time we would go to put a sock on her or later a shoe, she would start crying. And again, this is why it's so helpful. One of the core questions in aware parenting is always, are these feelings about the here and now, or are they about the past? And so often in this culture, and without understanding the third aspect of aware parenting, we will assume it's about the no. So we will assume the baby doesn't want to have her socks on, Lana doesn't want to have her socks on, when actually it was reminding her of the traumatic heel prick test. And it was actually Michael who helped her heal from that. So again, my own experience, despite the 10 years of weekly therapy, despite all the workshops, despite all the things I've done to support my own healing from my traumatic experiences as a baby, and he'd also experienced early separation as a baby. He was also in an incubator. He was adopted at 2 weeks old, so he had his own lots of painful feelings too. But he was actually much more competent at quite a few aspects of aware parenting that actually took me years to become competent at. So again, I wonder how you feel when you hear that. So there's another also really important thing I'd love to share, which is when she was 6 months old. So by this time I was reread. I only had 2 of Aletha's books back then. She'd only written 3 of the 7 back then. I'm believing that to be accurate. And I bought loads of copies of The Aware Baby, and I was trying to give them out to all different people. There's the two of the Pee-wees. And I was at a mother's group, local mother's group, and I live in a very, what you could call alternative place. So pretty much everyone was practicing classical attachment parenting. But despite me talking to seemingly everyone that I could about aware parenting, trying to hand the books out, no one else seemed to be interested. And I sat on a wall, and in the first iteration of this recording I shared very deeply and I think soulfully about these memories I have about these moments. And again, so the sitting in the room on the yellow IKEA chairs was one of them. Sitting on the wall outside the mother's group, I remember the exact moment where I sat out there and I was crying. I was holding Lana. I was crying. I was longing for community. I wanted to meet other like-minded families who resonated with aware parenting as much as I did. And it was such a deep longing in me. I felt so much pain that I did not have that. I did not know anybody else apart from this one woman whose little one was a year older. And that changed everything. And from that moment on, really so much of what I went on to create came from that moment. I started a local group, so I bought a whole box of books of The Aware Baby, and I made little flyers on pieces of paper because social media didn't exist back then, and it was an in-person local group, in person. And I put it up on every notice board that I could in Mullumbimby and Byron Bay, and I went to every mother's group, mother and baby yoga group, mother and baby singing group, mother and baby anything I could group. Hi, lovely darlings. There we go. There's a parent, one of the parents and one of the youth who, as I saw yesterday, they're still feeding the little ones, even though they've been flying for like a week or so. Anyway, and as a result of that, I started this little local group where we would read each week. We would read a chapter of The Aware Baby and do the questions at the end of each chapter, and we would come and share about our experiences. And that group carried on for quite some time, and many of those women who came, it was mostly women, became very dear friends. And it was life-changing for me to have that experience of others who resonated with it too, and who we could share experiences, whose babies also became securely attached. So different parents and different children. And we would then often help each other when most of them got to that point as toddlers where us holding in particular ways had become control patterns. And so because they were securely attached with many of us, we would support each other with listening to their painful feelings. It was exquisite and beautiful. Chapter 3, Becoming an Aware Parenting Instructor. So, I don't know at what point I knew I wanted to become an Aware Parenting Instructor, probably right from the moment I found out about it, I don't know. Probably when I first realised that was a thing. Back in the day, we needed to go to an in-person workshop with Aletha Salter herself, and she lives in California. I live in Australia at that point, and she still does travel around the world to run workshops. And so I emailed her, and at that point I'd had a few sessions, but not many. I know it was at least one, maybe between 1 and 3. I mean, in retrospect, I'd love to pop in that time machine and have as many as was possible for me to pay for. And so I was part of a team who organised for her to come here to Australia, and she came and stayed and slept in the room which was still the office. And I remember that so clearly. I remember the songs that she sang to Lana. I remember we've still got the piece of paper where she wrote out in colouring pencil the words of the song with all the little images around. I remember the games that they played together. It was a very significant and beautiful experience. And it was the first time I was away from Lana for a night. So she was 3. This was 20 years ago. And 20 and a half years ago, because one of the workshops was further up north, several hours away. That was a big experience. She was with her dad. And one of the big life-changing things was Aletha told me about the work of Elaine Aron, highly sensitive children. And that was life-changing, so life-changing. And in fact, I'm about to, after I edit these and upload all these, that's my next project. I'm going to create an Aware Parenting and Highly Sensitive Child little course. So it helped me not only understand Lana, oh my gosh, made so much sense of so many things, but it also helped me understand myself and my mum. And it helped me in all the ways that I had previously judged myself to be something wrong with me. I saw those as me being highly sensitive, which I then came to deeply value. I deeply value the qualities I have as a highly sensitive person. I see those as a superpower. In the t-shirts I created some years ago, that was one of them. Highly sensitive is my superpower. In fact, when I could record the course, I could be wearing that t-shirt, couldn't I? I might do that. So it's beautiful. And so before I became certified, I think maybe for about the previous 6 months, I'd been offering free sessions, very clearly that I was in training to become an instructor, that I wasn't an instructor. And once I became certified, I just started offering one or two sessions a week in my home on those IKEA chairs with the yellow covers. And I really enjoyed it, although I was quite scared at first. And I started giving free intro talks at local pregnancy groups and mother and baby groups. And I was quite scared at first. And over the years, I got more comfortable, but it took me many years to quite a few used to stop judging myself. So on the way home, I remember that particular road I'd drive along, and I'd have all these harsh thoughts about myself, or what I had said, or what I hadn't said, or what I wish I'd said. So that was part of why I developed the Marion method work for many reasons. So again, this is not the place for that, but just to let you know, if you want to hear more about that, my Marion Rose podcast will be talking lots about those things. I also wrote articles for Byron Child, which was set up by a woman called she was called Carly back in the day, Kelly Wendorf, which then became Kindred magazine, which then became Kindred Media. She passed that on to someone else. And so for quite a few years I would write articles, and back in those days that would take me months. It would take me months to write an article. Though I've still got the magazines, months and months and months and months. And in that period, I helped Lana get free from her breastfeeding control pattern. Woohoo! I helped her reconnect with her deep innate wisdom with food, which she still has completely intact as a 22-year-old young woman. She's so... her innate wisdom. I love seeing it. And I've got a whole chapter on food, by the way, in my I'm Here and I'm Listening books. I dived in deeply with that if you want to learn more about that. She liked to cry more freely with me again. Although I'd say I still think that that early year and a half or so affected her willingness to express her painful feelings with me. She's continued to be more comfortable with her dad, and it was completely different with Sunny, which I will share about, very diligently discerned between hunger and painful feelings. And I'm not saying that my journey will be the same for everyone. Other things happen, which I'm about to share about, which also affected that. I also learnt to embody loving limits more. It took me a long time. Again, Michael had been able to offer those from he found that much easier than me. It took me a long time to really embody them, which again is why I love sharing about them with others. Again, I've got a course on that because it was transformative in my parenting and all the rest of my life when I really understood loving limits and was able to embody them. So they're life-changing. I also wasn't doing much attachment play apart from I did a lot of non-directive child-centered play and a lot of played a lot of cooperative games and quite a bit of body contact play. But the other things, so again, Aletha's book, Attachment Play, had not been written at that point. So again, it wasn't, apart from those three, that wasn't an area of competence either. So again, I'm showing these just so that you know, if you're ever like, oh, gosh, I don't do much attachment play. Well, I didn't either. Chapter 4, Becoming a Mother of Two. Well, I remember being pregnant, and I remember sharing with two of my friends in my dear friend Megan's house on her sofa. Again, I remember the exact moment when I was sharing about my fear of how I would be able to meet the needs of two children. And I'm sending love to you in your experience of this. And in the first 4 years after Sunny was born, well, actually after the first 6 months, I actually found it way easier being a mother of two. And I believe that's because by then, well, we were meeting a lot of Lana's needs, and she'd expressed by that point a large percentage of her feelings. And with Sunny, I was so diligent because I did not want to give him a breastfeeding control pattern, because I wanted him to be free to fully express every single feeling to me. I was so diligent. I was diligent to the T about differentiating between hunger and a need to release. And I believe that I listened to a very high percentage of his feelings. There was a lot of crying and ums for the first 4 months in particular. And again, I could have distracted him probably from all of those feelings. And again, that's not the case with every baby. Some babies, particularly if they've had a very traumatic birth, we might do everything we can to try and distract them and stop them crying, and that the amount of feelings and the intensity of what they're trying to express might mean it's almost impossible to do that. So I really want to name that. And as a result, he was incredibly present. I've never seen presence like that. I have seen presence like that in Lana in that first cry and after each cry. But he had a quality of presence like most of the time, so that continued throughout. And we would joke about the two of them. I mean, she was really present too. I mean, we would go, I'm sure you've heard me share in other places, we would go into shops when he was 2 and she was 6, and with lots of breakable ornaments in, and the shopkeeper would be clearly stressed, and they would go and just gently move, and often put things back in order, because I love Montessori. Where did I share this? I probably already shared this on this podcast. Anyway, I love sharing the story, so you'll hear it again from me, no doubt. He was so interested in the world, and so again I saw a difference in terms of how me giving Lana a breastfeeding control pattern had affected her in quite a lot of ways. So they were totally in love with each other 99% of the time. And when I say totally in love, I mean like adoration. So after that first 6 months in particular, Lana chose all his outfits pretty much for him, matching hers. She would help getting him dressed, she would play with him. Later on, as I did more touch and play, she would play touch and play with him. She would read books to him, translating them into nonviolent communication, as I'd done to her, for her, to her, read to her. It was so beautiful. Of course, I was with them all the time, and I was also playing with them, interacting with them too, and they got so many of their needs for connection also met with each other, which was a very different experience. So once Sunny was born, I stopped doing one-on-one sessions at home, because actually Michael looking after Lana and me being in that end room, they could stay quietish. But once Sunny was born too, that was no longer a fit. So I started doing, does anyone remember Skype? Skype sessions. So again, when he was early in his infancy, that's the beautiful thing. I'd start off with just one session here and there, and then just gradually built it up again. And that same year he was born, I created my first website, Parenting with Presence, and I wrote articles on aware parenting there, which you can still access, because that hosting thing suddenly went down, and so I actually paid someone. It's the first time I paid someone to help me with my offerings, and they transferred all the articles over, but there's no formatting or anything, so some of those articles are still there on my website. You might come across them occasionally. Chapter 5, the separation and hitting and headbutting. So Mike and I separated when Sunny was 4 and Lana was 8.5. And as I say, Sunny went from being the most present being I'd ever met to hitting and headbutting. So again, if you've experienced anything like this and your child is hitting, particularly whatever, but if also they're hitting their sibling or siblings, I am sending you so much love. And it gave me deep humility, because before that, if someone experienced hitting, I'd say, we can touch and play in loving limits, but I really didn't get from first-hand the experience of even knowing, like I knew what to do ostensibly, touch and play, loving limits. I knew why he was doing it, but number one, I was in so much pain myself, and number two, I didn't really know the nuance of practicing touch and play and loving limits to help a hitting child until I'd actually gone through it myself. Many times I did not get there in time to prevent him hitting Lana, and so after about 6 months of her still being absolutely adoring and loving towards him, she started to be harsh in her words towards him. Now this was another one of the most painful times in my life, as it was almost like, just like with Sunny, I saw from that the openness in his eyes, the open spaciousness, the love, the light, I saw instead deep pain. In fact, I've got a photo from that time which I feel devastated when I look at it. Saw the pain sitting in his body. And the same thing happened with Lana, that she also went from such presence and joy and love to, for her it was a lot more also about avoiding eye contact. So painful. And she went from being this Love, 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 love. What can I do? What can I do? Love, 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 love. To harsh words. Oh my gosh. So I was devastated because I saw the truth of who they both really were, and I saw the difference when they had all this unexpressed pain in their bodies and how profoundly that affected them, and it affected our relationship. So with Sunny, that rupture lasted for some years, and with Lana, that rupture of me not protecting her, many times not getting there. I mean, many times I also did, but many times I didn't get there in time and I didn't protect her, which was a replication of something that had happened to me at the same age. And that rupture lasted for a very, 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 very long time. It was very painful for me for a very long time. So again, if you've experienced that, I'm sending so much love to you. And it did heal. So I really want to let you know that sometimes it may take many years for ruptures to heal. Sometimes not. Sometimes they can be repaired immediately or soon. Sometimes, my experience was, it can take a very long time. It was really hard. It was really hard. I was already devastated. So I was devastated in terms of the separation of Michael. I was in so much pain because if you listen to the last episode, you'll know I'd already experienced so much separation in my life earlier on, which I'd done a lot of healing from. But this was another layer of helping me tap into even deeper pain. So I was in so much pain. They were in so much pain. We were all in so much pain. That was ricocheting off each other. And even though it was excruciatingly painful, I became a much more competent and compassionate, aware parenting instructor, because literally I can understand that someone could understand the theory inside out, back to front, and not be able to practice it some or a lot or all of the time. I many times reacted in ways that I didn't want to, so I had complete compassion for any parent who reacted in ways they didn't want to their children. I learned to completely not judge myself, so I learned to completely not judge any other parent. It was a profound time for me, and I wonder who I would have been as an aware parenting instructor if I hadn't gone through that. So anyone who's wanting to become an instructor or is training to be an instructor or is an instructor and you're going through hard times, I think that helps us often contribute more. And I eventually learned how to embody loving limits in response to hitting. And I invented a game, the Shall We Dance game, that was created the exact balance of attention for Sunny. So through both of those, it was a deep learning process. And again, I've shared that. I have a Help Your Child Stop Hitting free PDF and course, which you can find on my website, where again I share from deep lived experience how then eventually he did stop hitting. Sunny, it was as if I got my boy back again. The veil of pain from his eyes lifted. I mean, not completely. Again, I still see the effects of that in him and in his life and his body. But he regained the capacity to cry. So before, if I'd accidentally just bumped into him a tiny bit, he would thwack or headbutt many times a day. And now he went back to crying. He stopped hitting. He went back to crying freely again with me, which was such a joy. And that time of kind of hibernating quite a bit to protect other children and protect him from being someone who hit other children. And of course he was hitting Lana, but he wasn't hitting other children. I think twice he'd been out in other environments, and then I went, not willing for that. And my own inner work was vital too. It helped me understand and learn and deepen so much in my own healing, experiencing being hit and headbutted many times. So the rupture with him was healed, but not with Lana. Chapter 6, our homeschooling life and my travelling for workshops. So we settled into this new life as me as a solo parent. I started going to Sydney and Melbourne for weekends where they would stay with their dad and his partner, Ruthie, and started running workshops. I built my confidence, would we call it that? I'm not sure if I enjoy that word, but yeah, I started to feel more comfortable to do things like that again through experience. I deepened my understanding of aware parenting, particularly with food and learning, because we were homeschooling. All this time I'd been working one-to-one with people, still with Skype. And then chapter 7 was the online courses and the Aware Parenting Instructor Mentoring course. So in 2014, I started creating, I'd already written my first course and I was looking for help to, how do I actually make an online course? I found, or in fact, that lovely Avalon Darnesh, who is no longer with us in this realm, of course that belief is not an Aware Parenting belief, it's my own. She shared about Joanna Kingsford with me. I did Joanna's launch little course back in 2014 and started putting my online courses out into the world. For that first year I created and shared one every month, I think maybe the first 2 years. And I was also getting up 2 hours before my lovelies, 2 hours every day before them, every day, apart from birthdays, Christmas and so on, so I could be creating these courses. Most of them were on aware parenting, but some of them were on what became the Marion method. I also, in 2015, created in March, before that, but it started in March, the first live round. So we've just finished the 10th live round. I created the Aware Parenting Instructor Mentoring course because I saw in this, I set up this free group. So whilst I had a husband and my dad was still alive, I was being financially supported. I did not need to work. I'm very grateful for that. I had enough money to be a lot of the time giving away information for free, support for free. So for quite some years I had this Parenting with Presence Yahoo group. Yahoo, have you ever heard of a Yahoo group? Pre-Facebook. And many of those people were so passionate about aware parenting, they wanted to become aware parenting instructors. And some of them did indeed do that. I'm thinking of a few of them. Some of them started connections with each other where they shared with each other, which continue to this day. And some of them wanted more support to become aware parenting instructors and went off and trained in other modalities. And I felt really sad every time I saw that happen. So for some years I'd been like, this had happened over and over and over again. So I really want to create a course to support people who want to have extra support in the process of becoming an aware parenting instructor. And so I asked Aletha Salter if she was willing for me to do that, and she was, and I asked her about the title of the URL, and she said she was willing for me to do that. And so I did, and I loved it. And so interesting though, because not many of the courses that I created from back in 2014 are still available, but the Aware Parenting Instructor Mentoring course is, and every year I update it. But still, even I think there are still one or two of those early videos. But each year I take one down and replace them, because back in those days I was like, hello. I still believed that I needed to be someone. I needed to be someone other than me, basically, to share about aware parenting. And it would take me hours. I'd put makeup on, and I even then wasn't wearing makeup, so the lipstick would be everywhere. And I would get my hair to go in a certain way. And I remember back in the day I was having my first silver hair, so I was kind of plucking one or two of them out. And I would tidy the whole house behind me, and that would take hours. And I bought this very expensive Canon camera / video camera, which so often wouldn't work, and I would be recording it 15 times. You know, it's a little bit like now, the one bit that still remains of that, the only bit that still remains of that is the technical challenges that still often happen with every course. There we go. I created lots of aware parenting courses. So my Attach and Play course I created that year. Created lots of other courses that no longer exist that became the Marion method. What other one? The Living Aware Parenting course, which inspired the name of this, that no longer exists. It's no longer available as a course though. Then I was offering aware parenting with Marion immersions in person. So I'd learnt this word immersion and I called it aware parenting with Marion immersion. Other people asked if I was willing for them to also use that term, aware parenting immersion, and I was. I created the Aware Parenting Virtual Village. I created Aware Parenting with Marion membership, which I loved and ran for a few years, which for some years I've been thinking, I might do that again. I might do that next year. I might do that in 2026. And what I'm so grateful about is I was creating these courses about aware parenting, so there's nothing like teaching something to people to deepen our understanding. So my understanding deepened, and also it was always at the top of my mind because I was writing about it, sharing about it, running live rounds, answering people's questions, also still offering one-on-one sessions, offering workshops, offering free talks. So I was basically immersed in aware parenting throughout my children's childhood, which I am so grateful for. I started sharing about it on Facebook and Instagram. It's my understanding I was the first person to share about aware parenting on Instagram, hence I got the name Aware Parenting, which was one of my 3 Instagram, what's the thing called? Names, I can't think of the word. You can tell I've been using it a long time, can't you? Because I'm very proficient in the terminology. I would write a post nearly every day on Instagram. I have been then for however many years. That is a very long time since Instagram started. When did Instagram come out? Facebook, I think, was it 2006? I can't remember. Anyway, we carried on homeschooling. I learned so much about the learning process with aware parenting. So, of course, Aletha's written her latest book this year. Beautiful book, all about learning from an aware parenting perspective. However, so I had 3 main challenges in my aware parenting journey. One was Lana and the breastfeeding control pattern. The second one was Sonny and his hitting and the rupture with Lana. And the third one was Sonny and screens and sleep. That was very hard for me. I felt powerless a lot. I share about that in my sleep book. It was a big learning curve. And again, I will be sharing many episodes about that where I'll go into that. Woo. So if you have challenges in relation to screens and a teen and sleep, I'm sending you lots of love. Chapter 8, podcast, level 2, instructor, regional coordinator, and writing the books. So, still creating online courses, I'm still offering one-to-one mentoring. I mentored a lot of aware parenting instructors and instructors to be. Aletha created a whole new, so up until that point, you still needed to be go to one of Aletha's in-person workshops to become certified as an instructor. Then she changed that system, so she made the possibility of instructors to become a level 2 instructors and for people to come to an in-person workshop to count towards certification. So I was running in-person workshops, and then that moved to the whole shutdown that happened, and so then eventually people then could come to an online workshop with a level 2 instructor or Aletha herself. And then she invented the regional coordinators, so then us as regional coordinators took over from her the process of certifying aware parenting instructors. And I loved this process. So also then Rebecca Shake, who is the regional coordinator of the UK and Ireland, and I think it's called Sub-Saharan Africa. If anyone's listening to this and this isn't accurate, my apologies, Rebecca. She had the idea, what about Aletha running meetings with instructors, quarterly meetings after the newsletter she sends out to us as instructors every quarter. So that started, which has been so wonderful to hear directly from Aletha and to ask her questions. And this journey for me has been deepening my connection with Aletha. So there was the co-authored book, and then I was really immersed for how long was it? 2 years? I don't know. In writing my trilogy of aware parenting books, and every one of those Aletha edited had thousands of edits in there. So I was really, really so wanting to be accurate, and I have a little ant crawling on me. I love how Aletha really values us all sharing aware parenting with deep accuracy. So we're sharing with deep integrity. This is aware parenting. This isn't. This is. This isn't. This is. So I had lots of interactions going back and forth with her, and I got clearer and clearer and clearer about some things. You think after all that time I would be clear about everything, and this is what I want to say. I love aware parenting because, like any practice that has a paradigm, philosophy that has depth, we can be on this lifelong journey of getting more and more nuanced understanding. Oh, there's another little bird there. What are you, sweetheart? I don't even know what bird that is. I've never seen one like that before. Yeah, so these were things I'd never seen before. These deepening understandings. So book editing, I got so much clearer about the nuances of aware parenting with screens, and why not using loving limits with food, things that I thought I was clear on that I clearly was not. So again, I want to say this is through deep immersion by this point in aware parenting for like 20 years, and I was still learning so much. And I'd done enough healing, so I really want to talk about this, that many years ago, if I'd had thousands of edits on something of Aletha saying this isn't accurate and this la 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 and this, and like so much detail, I probably would have felt lots of painful feelings. I probably would have experienced lots of pain from the past, being at school, being judged, being shamed, being marked. But because I've done so much work on all of those things, so much inner work, I didn't feel upset at all, not one iota. I was just really grateful that she was willing to put all these hours into rectifying what I'd written and making sure it was super accurate. So I really value accuracy, and so I really want to share that, because if you're thinking of becoming an aware parenting instructor, or you are one, this is part of the process of clearly communicating these things are aware parenting, these are aware parenting terminologies, and this isn't. And I always aim to do that. So when it's people in my region, I will always aim to communicate that. As you know me, if you know me, you know, with the most compassion, zero judgment. I'm not judging, I'm not punishing, I'm not doing any of those things. I'm giving you information so that you have that to meet your need for accuracy, so that you can then represent aware parenting accurately as an aware parenting instructor. And I so understand how easy it is to have those experiences and to go connect with younger memories, which of course this is how we heal. Something is similar in some way to the present, and we feel feelings from the past. Just to really know that that is part of the process of being really as accurate as we can be. And if you're sharing things that aren't accurate, this is why I also want to share 20 years. I had been teaching people things, aware parenting, that weren't actually entirely accurate. Another thing with the emotional life of babies, how I'd been communicating what to do if your baby's got lots of big feelings and you're not able to listen. Aletha told me that what I'd been teaching wasn't accurate. So I really want to say, and she didn't judge me, she didn't do anything, she just gave me the information so I could rectify it, as I would do to any instructor in my region, to say, oh, sweetheart, blah, blah, blah. It's not about punishment, it's not about harshness, not about any of those things, simply having accurate information and updating it wherever possible. And in this process, I got clearer and clearer through seeing, oh my gosh, so this is actually not aware parenting, this is the Marion method. So this has been a big journey the last few years of getting really clear through all these conversations with Aletha, and to really differentiate out what is aware parenting, the Marion method. And I talk about this in an episode that I've recorded yesterday. And I'm going to do a whole series on differentiating aware parenting from all different paradigms. And I'll also include the Marion method one in that one too. Oh, it's funny. I wonder why I cleared my throat there. Well, partly because I'm thirsty. and and yes, Koyo, I agree with you. It was big. Lana and I, the rupture was healed. Another one of my greatest joys in life. I love them so much. Which moves on to chapter 9 now. I love my connections with Lana and Sunny right now. So Sunny, Lana lives still in this upper house, the main house, which also my mum lives, used to be in the living room. Granny flat just there, got flooded, and after it had been all completely, everything ripped out, including all the walls and floors, and it was renovated, Sunny moved down there. So beautiful. So it's me and my mum and Lana up in this upper house, the beautiful new deck, and Sunny's in the beautiful luxury, they call it the luxury pool house. I love that they live at home. Of course, I support them in whatever they want to do. And at the moment, they both love living at home. I see how connected they are with themselves. That's one of the, for me, I didn't know this was going to be what would happen. And you've heard my journey, our journey. It's been lots of ruptures, lots of pain. There's been many ways in which I didn't know things, didn't practice things accurately, had reactions, big ruptures. All of us, I believe, in this time of our evolution is going to have things that happen that are not enjoyable, but still, I see how deeply connected they are with themselves. And I do believe that is a result of Michael and I practicing aware parenting with them. From our own conditioning, from our own hurts, from our own level of development every step of the way, they are deeply connected with themselves and deeply true to themselves. They really, really, really listen to themselves, and they are not willing to be coerced into doing anything that isn't deeply resonant with them. They're both very deeply present. And again, I absolutely want to let you know, I still see many ways in which they are carrying intergenerational themes. When I first started aware parenting with Lana, I thought I can listen to 100% of her feelings and she will have no control patterns and she will share all of the feelings with me, and etc., etc. Well, it soon became very clear to me that wouldn't be the case, and that actually, but I see myself as a step in an evolutionary journey, and I really acknowledge myself. I actually want to cry that I have come from where I came from. You heard about some of my experiences, and I see these amazing beings and how much freer they are than I was as a young adult, how much less pain they've got carrying in their bodies than I had, how much fewer times they need to suppress their feelings or dissociate from them, how much more connected they are to their innate wisdom, how they don't judge themselves, how you might have read that post I wrote recently. Oh, hello, there's Harold, one of the water dragons. Hello, lovely Harold. And I was driving. So Sunny and I, we go to yoga together twice a week. We go to taiko together once or twice a week. We go to, I take him to taiko performances. We hang out together a lot. I don't hang out as much with Lana, but she's at home, and so we're interacting. We have a lovely warm connection. Yeah, it is different, so you can see already the difference in those two, but still so delicious. And what was I going to say? Oh, so one time we were driving home. Oh my gosh, the kookaburra just landed down. Clearly there's the Harold the water dragon just found something, and the kookaburra just jumped down and went, oh, I would like that. Harold the water dragon is still close, so interesting. That's an interaction I've never seen. If this was on the Marion Method podcast, I'd be talking about messages from life. But since this is the Living Aware Parenting podcast, I will not be talking about that. But how interesting. So we were driving home from yoga. Am I ever going to finish this story, you'll ask? And I was to ask him, do you ever feel guilt or shame? And he said, what is that? He doesn't even understand really what it is. And I think, yeah, there were many ways I acted in ways that I didn't enjoy. There were many ways that I would have loved to have been able to do things that I wasn't able to do. And there are many ways in which I see things in them that I'm like, yes, that was one of them. I was so filled, as you know, with guilt and shame and self-judgment. I really wanted them to grow up without that, and that has absolutely happened. And so what's going on for me? Still loving courses. So from the hibernatory few years, that was not only writing the books, but going through menopause, which actually was really easeful for me, but I really wanted to hibernate. This year, 2025, I've been focused on making lots of new courses. So I've made lots of small aware parenting courses, and next year I would like to be doing both writing books and new courses. So I've got lots of books. I've got books that are written already. I've got books that are half written. Oh, I didn't even talk about my children's books that came out this year. That's a whole story. Maybe I'll share that in a whole different episode. That gave me a whole series, but 2 came out this year. It was meant to be 3. Anyways, so that is a long story. There's a long story, so this is already long enough. I will share that in another episode. I'm going to... no, that's the next chapter, the future. I love aware parenting as much as I ever did, if not more, because it's like a long-term relationship, isn't it? It's a different, getting like that initial, like, I resonate with this, and then a long-term relationship of deep love through lived experience. It's absolute love, and it's different in that I've lived through 23 years of practicing it, have much more nuanced understanding, much more compassion, understanding of actually how hard it is, and deep compassion for however anyone engages with it. I'm so glad to have deepened a connection with Aletha in many conversations. It's been such an honour. Chapter 10, the future. More children's books, so I will talk more about them. There was going to be another one this year, but my lovely illustrator has also been through a big time this year, as I have. So I don't know if the next one's going to come out this year. But anyway, I've written a bazillion of them. No, not a bazillion, a lot. And I'm willing for her to illustrate them, and they will come out. I'm going to create more mini courses next year. I'm still thinking about that membership. Maybe it will come. I've got a new course for aware parenting instructors coming out next year that I've been talking about for years with Aletha. And my vision is still for more and more and more and more and more people to learn about aware parenting. And I think it has also probably changed. I think I had this sense of like, the whole world will practice it. And now my vision is really for as many people as possible who will resonate with this information when they get it, will receive the information. And that's through all of us, all the instructor, Aletha's amazing work and books and all the ways she shares in the world, all the instructors to be, and all the parents and people who are carers and people who are into aware parenting who talk about it. I hear from so many of you, you say, I share it with my friends, I share it with X, Y and Z. So my vision is just for it to become more and more well known and practiced by people who resonate, because I think it's a journey, and I think for many people it isn't the time to it's not a fit for them right now. So this is nearly as long as the first version was, and I'm so willing for this to be really clear for you to hear, and I'm so willing for this one to have been even more beautiful than the original. Thank you so much for watching or listening. I'm going to pop off to the market now. 9:15. Sonny will be there. He was up at 5. I was up at 5:30 and he was already awake. So he goes early to the market, and Lana will probably going too. There's a bike there, so she hasn't gone yet. We hang out. So we do hang out at the market every Friday. Lana, Sonny and Michael and I. That's fun. So I'll be off. I will see you in the next episode, which was yesterday. Time travel happens here, and so much love. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I'm so willing for you to have found it helpful. If you'd like further resources, here is a summary of the details. You can find the full information in the show notes. I do have another podcast, the Marion Rose podcast, where I talk about all my other interests and offerings. It includes the Marion Method work, which consists of reparenting as well as what I call reculturing, which includes reclaiming our yeses and nos, getting free from what I call disconnected domination culture conditioning, such as guilt and coercion, and lots more. As of September 2025, Aletha Salter PhD has 7 published books, which you can find on her website, which is awareparenting.com/books.htm. And as of September 2025, I have 4 solo published books for parents and 2 for children, with more coming soon. You can also find out about those on my website, which is marionrose.net/books. In the show notes, I also share links for my free and paid online courses, one-to-one mentoring, and social media. I also give information about becoming an aware parenting instructor in my region and finding other aware parenting instructors to work with. See you in the next episode.